I am Ra. I greet you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner. Could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? I am Ra. The physical complex energy level of the instrument is in sizable deficit. The vital energies are well. Questioner. In the last session, you mentioned least distorted complex protein, since the body complex of the instrument was capable of greatly increased distortion. Would you define the protein of which you spoke? And we would like to know increased distortion in which direction, towards health or ill health? I am Ra. We were, in the cautionary statement about complex protein, referring to the distortions of the animal protein, which has been slaughtered and preservatives added in order to maintain the acceptability to your peoples of this non-living physical material. It is well to attempt to find those items which are fresh and of the best quality possible, in order to avoid increasing this particular entity's distortions, which may be loosely termed allergic. We were speaking of the distortion towards disease, which is potential at this space-time. Questioner. What disease in particular were you speaking of, and what would be its cause? I am Ra. One disease, as you call this distortion, is that of the arthritis and the lupus erythematosus. The cause of this complex of distortions is, at base, pre-incarnative. We refrain from determining the other distortion potential at this space-time due to our desire to maintain the free will of this group. Affirmations may yet cause this difficulty to resolve itself. Therefore, we simply encouraged the general care with a diet with the instructions about allergy, as you call this quite complex distortion of the mind and body complexes. Questioner. The instrument asked the following question. Quote, Ra has implied that the instrument is on a path of martyrdom, but since all die, are we not all martyr to something? When, if ever, does martyrdom partake of wisdom? End quote. I am Ra. This is a thoughtful query. Let us use as exemplar the one known as Jehoshua. This entity incarnated with the plan of martyrdom. There is no wisdom in this plan, but rather understanding and compassion extended to its fullest perfection. The one known as Jehoshua would have been less than fully understanding of its course had it chosen to follow its will at any space-time during its teachings. Several times, as you called this measure, this entity had the possibility of moving towards the martyr's place, which was, for that martyr, Jerusalem. Yet in meditation, this entity stated, time and again, it is not yet the hour. The entity could also have, when the hour came, walked another path. Its incarnation would then have been prolonged, but the path for which it incarnated somewhat confused. Thusly, one may observe the greatest amount of understanding of which this entity was indeed capable, taking place as the entity in meditation felt and knew that the hour had come for that to be fulfilled, which was its incarnation. It is indeed so that all mind-body-spirit complexes shall die to the third density illusion. That is, that each yellow ray, physical complex body shall cease to be viable. It is a misnomer to, for this reason alone, call each mind-body-spirit complex a martyr, for this term is reserved for those who lay down their lives for the service they may provide to others. We may encourage meditation upon the functions of the will. Questioner. Can you make any suggestions about the instrument's feet or how they got in the bad shape they are in? And would alternating the shoes help? I am Ra. The distortion referred to above, that is, the complex of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and lupus erythematosus, acts in such a way as to cause various portions of the body complex to become distorted in the way in which the instrument's pedal appendages are now distorted. We may suggest care in resumption of the exercise, but determination as well. The alternation of footwear shall prove efficacious. The undergarment for the feet, which you call the anklet, should be of a softer and finer material than is now being used, and should, if possible, conform more to the outline of those appendages upon which it is placed. This should provide a more efficient aid to the cushioning of these appendages. We may further suggest that the same immersion in the waters which is helpful to the general distortion is, in general, helpful to this specific distortion as well. However, The injury which has been sustained in the metatarsal region of the right pedal appendage should further be treated for some period of your space-time by the prudent application of the ice to the arch of the right foot for brief periods, followed always by immersion in the warm water. Questioner: Thank you. The instrument asks if the restricted, unpublishable healing information that was given during earlier sessions be included in later material, since readers who have gotten that far will be dedicated somewhat. I am Ra. This publication of material shall, in time, shall we say, be appropriate. There is intervening material. Questioner: Thank you. I am sure that we are getting into a problem area with the first distortion here, and also with a bit of transient material. But I have two questions from people that I'll ask, although I consider especially the first one to be of no lasting value. Andrei Puharich asks about the coming physical changes, specifically this summer. Is there anything that we could relay to him about that? I am Ra. We may confirm the good intention of the source of this entity's puzzles, and suggest that it is a grand choice that each may make to, by desire, collect the details of the day, or, by desire, to seek the keys to unknowing. Questioner: I can't help but be interested in the fact that this other entity to whom we have been referring reported being taken on board a craft. Could you tell me something about that? I am Ra. The nature of contact is such that in order for the deep portion of the trunk of the tree of mind affected to be able to accept the contact, some symbology which may rise to the conscious mind is necessary as a framework for the explanation of the fruits of the contact. In such cases, the entity's own expectations fashion the tale which shall be most acceptable to that entity. And in the dream state, or a trance state in which visions may be produced, this seeming memory is fed into the higher levels of the so-called subconscious and the lower levels of the conscious. From this point, the story may surface as any memory and cause the instrument to function without losing balance or sanity. Questioner: Thank you. Going back to the previous session, it was stated that each sexual activity was a transfer before the veil. Taking the case before the veil, would you trace the flow of energy that is transferred and tell me if that was the planned activity or a planned transfer by the designing logos? I am Ra. The path of energy transfer before the veiling during the sexual intercourse was that of the two entities possessed of green ray capability. The awareness of all as creator is that which opens the green energy center. Thusly, there was no possibility of blockage due to the sure knowledge of each, by each, that each was the creator. The transfers were weak due to the ease with which such transfers could take place between any two polarized entities during sexual intercourse. Questioner: What I was getting at, more precisely, was when we close an electrical circuit, it's easy to follow the path of energy. It goes along the conductor. I am trying to determine whether this transfer is between the heart chakras of each entity. I am trying to trace the physical flow of the energy to try to get an idea of blockages after the veil. I may be off on a wrong track here. If I'm wrong, we'll just drop it. Can you tell me something about that? I am Ra. In such a drawing or schematic representation of the circuitry of two mind-body spirits, or mind-body-spirit complexes, in sexual or other energy transfer, the circuit opens always at the red or base center and moves as possible through the intervening energy centers. If baffled, it will stop at orange. If not, it shall proceed to yellow. If still unbaffled, it shall proceed to green. It is well to remember, in the case of the mind-body-spirit, that the chakras, or energy centers, could well be functioning without crystallization. Questioner: In other words, they would be functioning, but it would be equivalent in electrical circuitry to having a high resistance, shall we say. Although the circuit would be complete, red through green, the total quantity of energy transferred would be less. Is this correct? I am Ra. We might most closely associate your query with the concept of voltage. The uncrystallized lower centers cannot deliver the higher voltage. The crystallized centers may become quite remarkable in the high voltage characteristics of the energy transfer as it reaches green ray. And indeed, as green ray is crystallized, this also applies to the higher energy centers until such energy transfers become an attestation for the creator. Editor's note. The word anastation in the previous passage can be defined as adornment or grace. Questioner. Would you please correct me on this statement then? I'm guessing that what happens is that when a transfer takes place, the energy is that light energy that comes in through the feet of the entity, and the voltage or potential difference starts with the red energy center, and, in the case of the green ray transfer, terminates at the green energy center, and then must leap or flow from the green energy center of one entity to the green of the other, and then something happens to it. Could you clear up my thinking on that? I am Ra. Yes. Questioner. Would you please do that? I am Ra. The energy transfer occurs in one releasing of the potential difference. This does not leap between green and green energy centers, but is the sharing of the energies of each from red ray upwards. In this context, it may be seen to be at its most efficient when both entities have orgasm simultaneously. However, it functions as transfer if either has the orgasm. And indeed, in the case of the physically expressed love between a mated pair, which does not have the conclusion you call orgasm, there is, nonetheless, a considerable amount of energy transferred due to the potential difference which has been raised, as long as both entities are aware of this potential and release its strength to each other by desire of the will in a mental or mind complex dedication. You may see this practice as being used to generate energy transfers in some of your practices of what you may call other than Christian religious distortion systems of the law of one. Questioner. Would you give me an example of that last statement? I am Ra. We preface this example with the reminder that each system is quite distorted and its teachings always half lost. However, one such system is that called the Tantric Yoga. Questioner. Considering individual A and individual B, if individual A experiences the orgasm, is the energy then transferred to individual B in a greater amount? Is that correct? I am Ra. Your query is incomplete. Please restate. Questioner. What I am trying to determine is whether the direction of energy transfer is a function of orgasm. Which entity gets the transferred energy? I know it's a dumb question, but I want to be sure I have it cleared up. I am Ra. If both entities are well polarized and vibrating in green ray love, any orgasm shall offer equal energy to both. Questioner. I see. Before the veil, can you describe any other physical difference that we haven't talked about yet with respect to the sexual energy transfers or relationships or anything prior to veiling? I am Ra. Perhaps the most critical difference of the veiling, before and after, was that before the mind, body, and spirit were veiled, entities were aware that each energy transfer, and indeed very nearly all that proceeds from any intercourse, social or sexual, between two entities, has its character and substance in time-space rather than space-time. The energies transferred during the sexual activity are not, properly speaking, of space-time. There is a great component of what you may call metaphysical energy transfer. Indeed, the body complex as a whole is greatly misunderstood due to the post-veiling assumption that the physical manifestation called the body is subject only to physical stimuli. This is emphatically not so. Questioner. After the veil, in our particular case, now we have, in the circuitry of which we were speaking, what you'd call blockages. Could you describe what occurs with this first blockage and what its effects are on each of the entities, assuming that one blocks and the other does not, or if both are blocked? I am Ra. This material has been covered previously. If both entities are blocked, both will have an increased hunger for the same activity, seeking to unblock the baffled flow of energy. If one entity is blocked and the other vibrates in love, the entity baffled will hunger still, but have a tendency to attempt to continue the procedure of sating the increasing hunger with the one vibrating green ray, due to an impression that this entity might prove helpful in this endeavor. The green ray active individual shall polarize slightly in the direction of service to others, but have only the energy with which it began. Questioner. I didn't mean to cover previously covered material. I was trying to work into a better understanding of what we're talking about, and what I was actually attempting to do was to discover something new in asking the question. So please, if I ask any questions in the future that have already been covered, don't bother to repeat the material. I am just searching the same area for the possibility of greater enlightenment with respect to the particular area, since it seems to be one of the major areas of experience in our present condition of veiling that produces a very large amount of catalyst, and I am trying to understand, to use a poor term, how this veiling process created a greater experience, and how this experience evolved. The questions are very difficult at times to ask. It occurs to me that many statues or drawings of the one known as Lucifer or the devil are shown with an erection. Is this a function of this orange ray blockage? And was this known by those who devised these statues and drawings, etc.? I am Ra. There is, of course, much other distortion involved in a discussion of any mythic archetypical form. However, we may answer in the affirmative and note that you are perceptive. Questioner. Then, with respect to the green, blue, and indigo transfers of energy, how would the mechanism for these transfers differ from the orange ray mechanism in making them possible, or setting the groundwork for them? I know this is very difficult to ask, and I may not be making any sense. What I am trying to do is get to an understanding of the foundation for transfers in each of the rays, and the preparations for the transfers, you might say, or the fundamental requirements and biases and potentials for these transfers. Could you expand on that for me, please? I am sorry for the poor question. I am Ra. We would take a moment to state in reply to a previous comment that we shall answer each query, whether or not it has been previously covered, for not to do so would be to baffle the flow of quite another transfer of energy. To respond to your query, we, firstly, wish to agree with your supposition that the subject you now query upon is a large one, for in it lies an entire system of opening the gateway to intelligent infinity. You may see that some information is necessarily shrouded in mystery by our desire to preserve the free will of the adept. The great key to blue, indigo, and finally, that great capital of a column of sexual energy transfer, violet energy transfers, is the metaphysical bond or distortion which has the name among your peoples of unconditional love. In the blue ray energy transfer, the quality of this love is refined in the fire of honest communication and clarity. This, shall we say, normally, meaning in general, takes a substantial portion of your space-time to accomplish, although there are instances of matings so well refined in previous incarnations and so well remembered that the blue ray may be penetrated at once. This energy transfer is of great benefit to the seeker in that all communication from this seeker is thereby refined, and the eyes of honesty and clarity look upon a new world. Such is the nature of blue ray energy, and such is one mechanism of potentiating and crystallizing it. As we approach indigo ray transfer, we find ourselves in a shadowland where we cannot give you information straight out or plain, for this is seen by us to be an infringement. We cannot speak at all of violet ray transfer, as we do not, again, desire to break the law of confusion. We may say that these jewels, though dearly bought, are beyond price for the seeker, and might suggest that just as each awareness is arrived at through a process of analysis, synthesis, and inspiration, so should the seeker approach its mate and evaluate each experience, seeking the jewel. Questioner. Is there any way to tell which ray the transfer was for an individual after the experience? I am Ra. There is only a subjective yardstick or measure of such. If the energies have flowed so that love is made whole, green ray transfer has taken place. If, by the same entity's exchange, greater ease in communication and greater sight has been experienced, the energy has been refined to the blue ray energy center. If the polarized entities, by the same energy transfer experience, find that the faculties of will and faith have been stimulated, not for a brief while, but for a great duration of what you call time, you may perceive the indigo ray transfer. We may not speak of the violet ray transfer, except to note that it is an opening to the gateway of intelligent infinity. Indeed, the indigo ray transfer is also this, but, shall we say, the veil has not yet been lifted. Questioner. Did most logoi plan before the veil to create a system of random sexual activity or specific pairing of entities for periods of time, or did they have an objective in this respect? I am Ra. This shall be the last full query of this working. The harvest from the previous creation was that which included the male and female mind, body, spirit. It was the intention of the original logoi that entities mate with one another in any fashion which caused a greater polarization. It was determined, after observation of the process of many logoi, that polarization increased many-fold if the mating were not indiscriminate. Consequent logoi thusly preserved a bias towards the mated relationship, which is more characteristic of more disciplined personalities and of what you may call higher densities. The free will of each entity, however, was always paramount, and a bias only could be offered. May we ask if there may be any brief queries before we leave this instrument? Questioner: is there anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? I am Ra. We would ask that each of the support group be especially vigilant in the, what you would call, immediate future, due to this instrument's unbidden but serious potential for increased distortion towards illness/health. You are most conscientious. We thank you, my friends, and leave you in the glorious light and love of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Greetings in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. May we all worship God together, opening our hearts and recognizing the divine within each of us as we work towards co-creating our social memory complex and discussing this law of one session. Thank you.
All right. That was perfect timing, by the way, Andre. Good for you. I would have jacked that all up.
God be praised.
Anybody want to bring us in? Something they want to talk about? I really felt like it was just a really poor foreplay. Really bad foreplay, like just the most boring foreplay I ever had in my life. No, I was kidding. Oh, I'm just kidding. All right.
It was terrible, but I mean, I think me and Terry, owe Susanna an apology. I mean, he only comes here, a few times a month just to visit me, and it's just an inside joke between us. It literally doesn't mean anything, and I'll go get him.
No, we just didn't have you muted, unfortunately. And
unfortunately, it was just a horrible joke, and I feel so horrible. Hey, Terry, come here.
Hey, Terry, get over here, Terry.
I'm going to turn on the camera. Come here. I mean, he's only here, maybe like a few times a month, but can we at least tell them, where are you? Come out here. No, you don't want to be on camera.
No, oh. Hi, Terry. Hi, Terry.
Was it a joke?
Hi.
Was it a joke?
It was a joke.
And it was horrible, to be unmuted in a group.
I don't even think we know what the joke was. We were just trying to meditate. That's all. I don't remember the joke. If anybody else does, I don't.
Well, I'm just saying I feel really bad about it. So
can I just say I'm really sorry if I'm really sorry to realize you were in the middle of meditation and that. I don't know whether that came through to everybody, but I'm really sorry if I spoiled anyone's kind of thing.
It's all good.
Anybody? Thank you guys for doing that.
Hey, you guys need to quit apologizing. We love you guys. Both of you.
No, but both of you, yeah. Damn right you apologize. No, I was kidding.
If I stop apologizing,
it'd be the first time I ever say, yeah, you bet. No, I was kidding.
I wanted to point out that Susanna said this full moon is in Scorpio.
Yes.
And our entire Raw session was sexual.
Yes.
Yeah.
No
I have to say, this was kind of like Ra's version of talking dirty, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I'm a little bit like, come on, Ra, man. Stop me so vanilla, but like,
I'm seriously all right with it, though.
Can I just say, is it just me? Yeah, or did it seem like they had so much more fun before the veil? Basically,
they had a lot more fun then.
No one had any like negative whatever. It's just like, oh, what did you want to fuck? Yeah, let's just fuck. This sounds great. Just say, but then also you've got the fact that you're always going to be fucking another self. Is that weird? I mean, not sure how far I'd want to go doing horrible things to me.
I do.
Well, there was
How
no
does that even
challenge.
work?
But does that actually
I'm
change
just saying,
anything?
I'm
And
just saying,
you're
like,
still.
I know how far I'd like to push things, and I'm not sure I'd have a limit. It would just be like a black hole of weird. I think the veiling was probably a good idea. I'm just saying.
There are websites
I
for
could spend
that,
a good
though.
few thousand lifetimes on that loop. Anyone else? No, just me. Okay, I'm going to mute myself because now I'm embarrassed. Sorry.
I would just like to
I don't know how to
bring,
mute myself. I got fear. I should stop doing this while drunk.
I would like to bring the subject of lupus because I was once diagnosed with lupus, and this is it's called a disease that you're supposed to keep all your life. I am the proof that no, it is not so. And in the writings today, they talk about like an allergic reaction, that's what it is. So it's not the immune system that function against you. It's actually fighting something that has become invisible in your body because it's so hard to find. I don't know if any one of you know medical medium, Anthony Williams. He talks a lot about lupus, which comes from Epstein-Barr. And what it really is excrement. The Epstein-Barr, first of all, has transmuted into something totally different. So even though they try to look in the blood tests for Epstein-Barr, you're not going to find it because it already changed its form. It's now a new organism that actually puts excrement into your bloodstream. And if you are someone that is allergic, you will react. So in here, it's a pre-contract, from, I forget how to say it. Anyway, so I'm glad that if I had decided to get lupus prior to be born, then I managed to figure out a way to really fully get it rid of my body. And
Okay,
what I did, yes.
So lupus, is you're saying that it's caused by some kind of infection, that then puts something into the blood that causes the immune response that causes lupus, right? And you're also saying that it's incarnation, a contract. Does that mean that you're soul signed some kind of contract with the organism that polluted the blood? Because we spoke about how plants and things are like huge hive minds. Who's to say that a specific strain of bacteria isn't? And when you sign over for that to be the thing that causes you lifetime or whatever, how do you know you're not signing over to the huge, massive, like super brain, massive organism that's all of the combined consciousness of all of those organisms that have called lupus to every human ever?
Exactly. Who's to know? Yes. So I actually went one day and I was told that the indication of lupus was no longer into my system at all. So amazing. And I just wanted to mention it before we carry on with the other thing. Yeah.
Well, look, from that, I mean, I don't know if Trevor's here. Is Trevor here? Yeah. But like he's normally the one that goes on about how kind of the immune system is heavily under your psychic control, as it were. And the intention actually kind of is heavily the immune system, almost as much as the neurons, is one of the things that really the endocrine system, the endocrine system is like the slow release of signals. The neurons are like the quick release of signals, but really when you look at like the other end of that, the immune system responding is the kind of that's the thing in place that blanket covers the lot, and I think that
Des, you're not muted.
Des, mute yourself. I can't think what I'm saying. The point is that talking your immune system into helping you, right? And not only that, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
communicating with the organism that's attacking you are both things that I've kind of learned from like the law of one. I don't know about anyone else. That this whole idea that everything has consciousness and you can communicate with it on all levels using your consciousness, meaning that creates the bridge that then gives you control over your own immune system to be able to fight these things or to stop it from fighting you. Or like vice versa, to actually talk to the organism that you signed your pre-incarnation contract with to stop it from hurting you that way. Both of those things are not things that I had ever even really considered to be possible before reading the Law of One. But now it's basically standard practice. If I get ill, I sit and meditate and I visualize my orange body, which is just like the life part of everything, right? Then I visualize the yellow body, which is like the conscious part of everything, right? And then, right, just by visualizing that, I can then view the orange parts of my body that are non-conscious me, not me, if that makes sense. Right. And then in that meditation place, the bits that I'm viewing as yellow, being consciousness, being the nervous system, they're different from the orange parts, being the single-celled organisms that live inside me. And if one of those is making me ill, that's the one I talk to. And I tell it to stop making me ill, and it all goes away because I've got clear communication with those orange ray entities that are living inside me or they're in my bloodstream that are fucking me up. And I can beam love at those, and they stop hurting me. And whatever illness it is, literally, I haven't been ill for more like 2 or 3 days since learning all this shit because that's what I go to now. I haven't seen a doctor in fucking years because literally I just meditate, find a bit that's not me, beam some love at it, and it goes away. I don't know if anyone else does that. It's just me.
Ed, if you can actually do that, you should. If I were you, I would do some recordings of explaining how you do it, and
dude. Right. Go back. Right, so many old ancient texts give you these things of like, how you can live forever. Like I think it was in the Book of Thoth. He says if you meditate for an hour facing north and then an hour facing south every day, you'll never ever get old. But the day you miss it, all of that age will hit you all at once. Right. So there's all these little things that people have been saying forever. Really, what it just comes down to is all of these things can be controlled with thought. Yeah, we can. Yeah, you just got to find ways to get it to work within you. And like I learned more from Ra about how to do this shit than anywhere else. And the stuff that I've taken from these books, my babies. Anyway, I forgot what I was chatting about. Dude, you're funny.
Soul Speak by Julia Cannon also talks about that. Basically, you can, if you're sick with anything, you can simply do a meditation and then, listen to that small, still, quiet voice to find out why it is that you're sick on a spiritual level and what you can do, like what you need to learn in order to heal yourself from it. And like, there's different things like with cancer, it's resentment. And so forgiving and holding, releasing that. And they say that for lupus.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't Ra say that cancer is caused a lot of the time by anger? And holding on to anger inside you is the thing that then is the catalyst that drives it.
Exactly.
So it's basically the same thing,
That one's very well verified. But yeah, Julia Cannon, she's Dolores Cannon's daughter, and she reviewed and did the transcripts for many of Dolores Cannon's sessions. And so she compiled all of the kind of what did the subconscious say was the reason when the person had this. And for lupus, she says it is attacking yourself or feeling a need to be punished. And so, and then the body just attacks the self because it's fulfilling the needs of the host, or the desires of the host. And so the idea there is to forgive and love yourself, and feel that you don't need to be punished, that you're okay as you are, you're okay being alive, and then just being happy with life.
Weirdly, considering this kind of like session of the Law of One, yeah, I'm gonna start looking for girls that got lupus.
I think Becca had her hand up.
Come on, that was funny. No, was that not funny? He was just talking about how, like, lupus is caused by, you need to punish yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get a girl with lupus. Anyway, sorry.
You're doing the most. You guys are doing the most. Becca, did you have your hand up, honey? Go ahead.
I did. Yeah, I typed it in there. I was just going to say, Louise Hayes, you can heal your life.
That's what I was just going to bring up.
Body is life-changing.
Yes, and it's hold on. It came out before Julie, whatever the hell her name is, Cannon. I forgot her name already. You forgot him. Julia, there you go. Don't laugh at me. Don't encourage shits. No, my brain wasn't working. But yes, that's actually, I pulled it up, Becca, right when you were, I'm surprised you, no, I'm not. I can't even talk. I pulled it up on my screen too, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure she's grabbing that off of other stuff. But I do believe that, hold on a minute. That's kind of bullshit, because I literally listened to every single one of those. All right, sorry. I think Julia's full of shit a little bit. I'm gonna shut up. No, I'm not. I'll continue. Anyway, it's really simple, Freddie. Just talk to yourself and believe it. You can talk. I talk to my cells, to everything in my body. There is no one way or right way to do things. Just do whatever feels comfortable for you. So I literally talk to like whatever it is, cells. I'm like, hey guys, I know that you know what you're doing. I'm sorry that I try to butt in there. So I'm going to stand back and let you do what you know you're supposed to do. And thank you. And I love you. And then they get back to work and do what they're supposed to do. Oh, don't look at me crazy now. Like now Fred's looking at me crazy. Now I'm starting to think I didn't make any sense, but I know damn well I did.
Look, I fully agree with you. That is it. It comes down to consciously, in your mind, taking control over, putting that intention that everyone talks about, manifesting intention out in the world or whatever, but focusing that inward in what you're made of.
We got a problem.
It's like one of the simplest ways to show this stuff works.
We got a problem though. We expect anything that works on that scale has to be difficult. It's not difficult. It's very simplistic and so simple. We make it difficult when really it's just talk to your body, talk to yourself. Listen.
The faith of a mustard seed.
For me, I find.
Wait, can I say something about this? So
I find that you just need a really good way to visualize and get it. Once you got that, once you got a good way of picturing it in your head, then you can work with it. You can do so many more things with it. And the whole kind of the different energy bodies that Ra describes are so powerful in that healing thing. He talks about the orange ray being the one that really kind of does the actual healing, like the etheric body, and the yellow ray being essentially your ego's control over it. That right there is all you need for medicine. If you can understand the relationship between those two things, there's nothing in your body you can't heal. Because it is that the yellow ray body, the nervous system, the conscious control of everything, and the orange ray body, which is each individual little tiny cell that makes up you, being its own entity. And you talking to it, and you're giving it love, and you're asking it what you'd like it to do.
And it says, get the fuck out of my way. Let me do my job.
So it's kind of like,
fuck you, man. Fuck you. I'm going to destroy you.
During the meditation, I was doing the hand gestures and that Susanna was saying, and my dog thought that was a cue for him to come up and get attention. And so I just, that's kind of what I did. I'm like, just do your thing, go somewhere else right now, you know. And I gave him some attention and then went and continued the meditation. He did exactly what I suggested that he did. I didn't even really say anything, but so you're doing the same thing. Just, I mean, they're all second density beings, whether it's bacteria or dogs, right?
I mean, there's like a scale though.
Okay,
Sliding
right.
scale
for
So
everything.
speaking
But
exactly
before
to
we
that,
get to
Fred,
the second, before you don't go too far off with the second density thing, if that's where
I'm
you're
not-
going, just so that
I'm
Benny
not,
can.
no.
Okay.
Okay, right. So if I want to call my cat in for food, yeah, I don't bother shouting his name or like wave whatever. I literally just visualize him coming into my shack for dinner, right? And he turns up more from me calling him with thought than he does from me calling him with sound.
Yes.
Honestly, it's great. I bet you I could sit here and like do it now, and he will turn up without me saying a word. And once you
All
start
right.
doing that, and you realize that all these things are connected.
How about
Anyway,
you
sorry,
do that
go on.
while Benny shares? You go right ahead, and I want to see your cat
Shelly,
hop up on the
Betty
screen.
share, I'm going to try and call
I
my
do
cat
too.
and only using my mind. Love you, dude.
All right, so you know, my mom, she I think maybe in 95 or 96, she suffered a stage 4 cancer. And you know, kind of like on the whole Des thing, you know, I'm trying to bring it to you to my, I'm not saying it's lower, but I talk in a certain way. But so she got stage 4 cancer. She beat it. And then, as Des knows, she ran for the state bodybuilding championships and won it. So, you know,
Badass bitch.
yep. And so my whole life, she, you know, she became a cancer recovery specialist, and everything Des said, you know, that's what she's talking about. You know, talking to your cells. You know, even taking probiotics, taking stuff like that will change your whole immunity, like. And I mean, she got caught cancer 3 other times, stage 4 once, and then she got ovarian cancer, and then some other type of cancer. I was away. I have no idea. And she's been fine. So I really think, you know, if, you know, she's a Reiki or Reiki healer. I don't know nothing about that, but I won't let her heal me. So, you know, I think Des is pretty much right on point with that, you know, talking to yourself,
100%.
cellular memory, fucking all that shit. So that's all
I've done it.
I believe.
All right, can I
you
just
because
say,
I've
yeah,
seen
the whole
pictures,
cat
so.
experiment, yeah, as I said it, as I was sitting there thinking that, he literally just ran over and sat over by the window there.
I don't believe you. I didn't see it. It didn't happen.
Pictures or it didn't happen.
All right, cat. All right, fuck. Okay, I'm getting pitched. Oh, he's such a weird cat. Oh gosh, should never ever use him as an example. Fuck's sake, I could call it every cat in the neighborhood.
Shit.
Okay, anyways, I can't. All right, let's just take a moment to laugh at that because that was hilarious. Go ahead, Becca. Where are you at?
Sorry, I was being spoken. How do I put this stupid hand down? Okay, there we go. I'm going back to what really, guys? Really?
You know that shit was funny.
Oh, animals, right? Okay. Spot with River. So
Mitch, turn off your camera so people can concentrate.
I done went and punched you 10 times already, so you might want to just black out for a minute. Anyways, so with River, she's a hyper puppy and she hadn't really been obeying very well, playing in the backyard, walking. Oh my gosh, walking. Other than that, she's pretty amazing. But one of the things I started doing was to calm myself and just kind of like play train her. And one of the things that I've been doing is instead of saying the commands, I'm like staring her dead in the eyes and she's doing exactly what it is I want her to do. I want her to sit and I want her to look at me until I'm ready to swing the fishing pole for her to chase after the squirrel. So that has actually been working out really cool.
And then the dog's thinking in their head, okay, peasant, do you really think I want to go chasing after that string on a pole? You know,
No,
like
no,
the
no, no,
strings
that's my
in-
cat.
Oh, your cat. Oh, okay.
Now my
Whatever.
cats say that, my dog doesn't.
Yeah. And awkward silence starts. Not now,
Well-
okay? Because I love to talk.
I had two thoughts on this one. The first one that goes for every session. I just thought it was something interesting. You know, Rob begins every session pretty much the same way. I greet you, my friends, the love and light and the infinite creator. And it occurred to me that the group never expresses any of that feeling of friendship back towards Ra. And I thought it was really strange, given all the teachings that Ra is giving towards the value of other selves and all that. It seems to me that it would be super common sense to express that love back to Ra. And Ra's just sitting there empty-handed, sharing and sharing and sharing, and never gets that back. So I thought that was interesting.
Maybe
and
they thought that they were good enough doing what they were doing was thanks enough. Like they were
Well,
doing
I was also kind of wondering if maybe during their setup ritual, because I've never watched any of the videos. I know they put them out there, but maybe they are sending something like that out there and they just don't include it in the transcript. The other thing that I thought was interesting, and maybe some of you that are a bit more familiar with Christianity than I can kind of explain this, but they make the statement that had Jesus followed his will, he could have chosen a different path at any time. But I was very much so under the impression that Jesus was following his will and engaging in these meditations in caves, the teachings that he was giving. That was all part of his will, his desire to be of service. So I'm a little bit confused as to what was meant by that. That had he exercised his will at any point, he could have chosen a different path.
It was had he exercised it wisdom, then he could have chose another path. But he was not exercising wisdom in those last days.
What do you mean?
So because he was a fourth density wanderer, so he didn't know the lessons of wisdom, and so he lived a life of pure love.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so because like there was, if he had been wiser, then he could have been like, hey, you know what? The people in Jerusalem want to kill me, and the people in the rural areas like me, so I can hang out with the rural people for a long time. But he just kind of, he didn't think that through. He was just following his love, and he
So
went
does
to,
that not mean that he didn't think it through? How can you think through something that you don't?
he was incapable of that leap, I guess, or at least maybe not incapable, but at that time he was not doing that leap. Also, there was other explanations that said that he had been betrayed by everyone in his life, including all of the disciples.
Welcome to living in 2023
or another. And he simply, on some level, he was ready to end his life. And that's why he went through with it, because he was done with everybody, because nobody understood him. Nobody understood his teachings. Even on the Last Supper, they were still going on about blood sacrifices when he was trying to teach them about the love of God and meditation and those things. And okay, go ahead.
I'm curious though, wouldn't that totally contradict what his teaching was here anyways, to love unconditionally? So that seems to me like that was conditional, or like he was, I feel like he should, that didn't apply. I don't know.
Well, it's just, he felt like there was nothing else more he could say or do that would help the situation. That was my understanding, and
okay.
So he just did the ultimate sacrifice for out of love. It was out of love. It's just that his kind of mission was complete from his perspective, since he wasn't engaged in wisdom. He had loved everything there was to love on Earth, and it concluded.
I'm a bit
Pitch. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, no. Fred had a stand up. Go ahead, Fred. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to say that I actually think what Ra meant was different than what you're thinking. What it seemed to me was that, see, in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus was praying before he was crucified, he was betrayed by his disciples, and he was praying to God and meditating basically, and he asked God that if it be your will, you can take this cup from me, or your will be done. Basically, was in his meditation. He was explicitly expressed the idea that he was to continue going down the path that he was set out to do. That was his desire and his will from the outset, I think, to be a martyr and to be martyred for that reason. Yes, we are all martyrs in our lives. We all end our life, but to be a martyr in a specific sense, like being martyred for a change in religious mindset, which is what he was doing. He was dethroning the Sadducees and Pharisees by exclaiming to everyone that, hey, we are all like, we're supposed to be loving, and we're supposed to be accepting, and I am God. He declared himself as being God and human, and he was not wrong. Why? Because we're all God and human. We're all part of the one infinite creator. That's what he was expressing to us. He just wasn't able to completely finish saying what he was saying, or he wouldn't have lived the 3.5 years that he did live, preaching what he preached and teaching what he taught. So I think what they meant more was he could have at any time changed his mind and not taken of the cup of martyrdom and not been crucified had he left the city before they arrested him. But he didn't. He still chose to be martyred at that time. The timing was right for the circumstance. All of the events that happened on purpose, and it culminated to his crucifixion and his martyrdom and his teaching being thrust. 2,000 years we've been learning about Jesus, so it obviously had the effect that he knew it was going to have. That was the intended purpose of it. But the religious twist, just like Ra coming, thousands of years ago, and it turning into what it did with the Egyptians, they've done what they've done with Christianity and Jesus's martyrdom. So I think that's more along the lines of what they were meaning by that. Does that make any sense?
Mitch?
I'm not preaching, Desiree. I'm not a preacher.
Oh. Mitch,
I meant it in a good way.
No, I didn't have anything else to say.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I
I just
think,
wanted to awkwardly stare at people and see.
You're right. Like there's, ultimately everything we can say is both right and wrong at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. And so, it is definitely true, like that he was there in the Gethsemane or whatever, and did ask, and that it is how it went down. I'm not sure he knew all the implications, but from my understanding, he knew he was the Messiah from a very young age, and all that, because everybody told him, and like the Essenes and all that, and so yeah, he did. He was aware of kind of the basic life plan, and that's kind of how it went down. And it is a good example for people who are third density going on to fourth, because they also don't have wisdom. And so they also have a very high likelihood of martyrdom, because they can't outthink the service to self path people, since they haven't learned those lessons yet. And so it is appropriate for Jesus to be a good example for them, because, their life will probably end in the same way, in a martyrdom way, or has a high likelihood anyways. And that's okay. They will still inherit the kingdom or whatnot. And I think that's kind of a beautiful message in that sense.
With all due respect, it sounds to me that brings up images of dogmatic fanaticism. I understand that's not how you mean it, but I mean that's a very slippery slope there.
Well, what do you mean by that statement?
I mean, people willing to, in an incarnation, believing they're doing good to the world is where ideations like suicide bombings come from. I don't think I don't think that the average person is expressing love in such a clear way that there's much to be gained from them believing that they are doing good if they sacrifice their incarnation for the benefits of others, because I feel that most that take that type of approach enable themselves to do horrible things in the name of dogma without really recognizing the love component that's so essential to bringing light from a decision like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you bring up a good point, and there's definitely different ways of dying with different motivations. Like, for instance, if someone was to die for their country, if it's coming from a neutral thing, as in like, oh, everybody's doing it, so I'm going to do it too, then that has no polarity. It has no polarity whatsoever, because they're not doing it for themselves, and they're not really doing it for others. They're just doing it because it's the popular thing. And then like a service to self person, well, they would probably avoid death at all costs if it wasn't by their own hand. And then, but yeah, what I meant by that service to others thing was that if you look throughout history, basically, I think I mentioned this at the previous session with you guys, that when a person polarizes service to others, the neutral people, they do not recognize that as service to others. They just see it as other. You're not doing the popular thing. You're doing something else. And both service to self people and service to other people look exactly the same to them, because they're unpolarized individuals. To the unpolarized individual, they just see it as other, something different, something foreign, something they don't like because it's dissimilar to them. So only other polarized people would recognize, oh, that's service to others, oh, that's service to self, or even people that have wisdom, because it might be difficult even for polarized people to recognize, because we're not in the density of understanding. But yeah, as a polarized individual, that's spreading love and kindness and things like that, that is a threat to, say, for instance, service to self people who say, hey, you know what, I'm trying to run a war here, and this person is promoting peace, and that's going to badly affect my pocketbook. So I'm going to say we're going to burn that person as a witch, or something like that. Like there were all those women that got burned as witches because they were healing people, and that was giving them good rapport, and that was taking away rapport from the priesthood, and that was a threat to the priesthood. And the priesthood was like, those are witches, we got to burn them because they're healing people. And everyone was like, yeah, let's do it.
It's control. They wanted
Exactly.
control, and it was taking it away from them.
Yeah, exactly. And so even in those situations, to keep your heart open and be like, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus set that example of, what, people won't understand you loving and being kind to others, because it's not the normal thing to do. And what, they may persecute you for it. And during Jesus's time, that was the standard. Anyone that polarized service to others was heavily persecuted, just like he was. He wasn't the first to die for service to others polarization. So that's what I meant by the martyrdom thing. Because like following Jesus's path, they may face a lot of persecution for doing that. And possibly all the way to death.
Good explanation. Ed, you are and Amanda too. You've been going like this. I wasn't sure if you were being a single lady or what you were doing over there.
No, I was just gonna make a comment on Jesus, the 33 years of age. I don't remember the significance of why 33. And I believe he was right when he said he fulfilled what he came here to do. So why hang around? He knew he was going to ascend. So why hang around when there's no more to do? But I don't know the 33 to age why. I can't remember why it was 33.
Well, you got to remember too, this was 2,000 years ago. People didn't live to 75 years old.
But is there a
At least not in
significance for the
Israel.
33? I don't know.
I thought they did live longer at that time.
Oh, well,
She's like, Old
No.
Testament, they were living hundreds
No.
of years.
it
They're a
depends
little bit
on
longer.
where. The indigenous
Right.
lived to be over 70, and in
Yeah.
China, but in Israel, the average
Maybe
age,
not,
and
yeah.
Rome, it was around 30.
But still, there was a significant
Go
about
ahead.
the 33, and I can't remember what it is.
I feel like Ed has an answer, but I'm trying to get him to unmute. There you go, bud. If you want to answer her.
Hey, yeah, I'm muted. Sorry, my phone died, and then I
I feel like Robert knows the answer too.
and loads of
Yeah.
different stuff. Okay, so 33's got loads of different numerology. Because like 3 super important. 3, 6, 9 are the kind of the main numbers in which you okay. If you look at the Hermetic tree, 3, 6, 9 are the ones that go down the middle. Yeah, they're like the middle pillar, the path of straight up to Kether. So 3, 6, 9 are important in loads of different things. And the 33 thing comes down to, I believe, kind of like 3 times 3 is 9, which is like the number of completion. So it's like the point at which you are a master or something like that, like an ascended master kind of, which is why the 33 is important. But talking about this whole Jesus thing, yeah, okay, so if he pre-incarnated, the same as say like the Dalai Lama or any of these other kind of ascended masters that are wanderers that have come back, but with knowledge of what they are, rather than a normal wanderer that will come back not knowing who they are and having to struggle through and find their place. Jesus came knowing who he was, right? So that's very important, because none of us really know what we are. We have to kind of struggle through and find it. Whereas Jesus knew who he was when he came here in the first place, because he made the pre-incarnative choices and he knew what he was here to do. Yeah. Now he chose the path of martyrdom because he knew that basically had to happen in order for what needed to for us to know that he was willing to give himself for that. In otherwise it wouldn't have made any point. But in real wisdom for himself as an entity, and then martyrdom is never the way. Right? So it's not something that any soul should choose to do. But he knew through pre-incarnative choice and through knowing what he was as an entity that was he had to give himself that way. Right? Can I also just say, if we're talking about this thing about the difference between the heart chakra and the unconditional love and the connection to everything, the oneness thing that Jesus really should represent. Yeah, this connection to everything and finding God inside yourself rather than externally. Yeah, which is really, when you tear all of the crap away, the main things that Jesus teaches. The difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament is God is no longer this horrible thing up there that will fuck you up. In fact, he's the only way of finding him is accepting him in your heart and knowing that he's in you. Yeah, because like Fred said, Jesus said that he is God, but he's also human, because all humans are that same exact embodiment of God. And we have to essentially be like Jesus in order to open the heart chakra and ascend to a fourth density and above. Right now, this whole thing of kind of like him not having wisdom and him making the choices that he did. Like if you look at the whole kind of the chakra tree and you go into the whole kind of like, when you go up to the higher chakras higher than what we have, you've got like the Christ, Adam Kadmon, or whatever it is, the crystalline human. Yeah. But then above that, you've actually got the Buddhic state, where essentially you have already accepted love and oneness and connection to everything. And from then realize that you don't matter at all in any way. And you dissolve the ego and the thing that you are. Right. And these are all steps up the ladder, if you know what I mean. Jesus represents really opening the heart chakra and connecting with love to everybody, which is something that we should all be doing. Right. He also represents the kind of forgiveness or the forgoing of a large chunk of the crap that religion had made at that point. And understanding that the blood sacrifice and all the rest of none of that is worship of oneness, if that makes sense. Right? It's all just human shit. And he kind of said, if you look inside yourself, you realize that none of that matters. Anyway. My phone cut out, so I don't know what was said. This might have all been said before.
Everything.
It might all be nonsense.
Perfect.
I don't know. Love you guys, eh?
Love you too. Go ahead, Robert.
Ed, always a tough act to follow. Gee.
He doesn't even realize his own genius, you know?
I know. Back to 33 real quick. What struck me with the number 33 was we are familiar with the Freemasonry level of 33 as being the level where, after all these rinky-dink, stupid little good acts you do up to all these different levels of Freemasonry, all of a sudden when you get to the 33rd, that's when you enter this new realm of magical powers, and you can't tell anybody what's going on after that point. You know, so 33, I don't know if they came up with the 33 because of Jesus being possibly 33 at death, but there's also some evidence that he may have been born like 5 years before what we call 0. So he may have been 38 or 37. There's still no real fixed age for him, but 33 is a accepted number, and it's possibly because of the Freemasons, that level, the 33rd degree of Freemason. And I forgot what I was going to say. But it was interesting what I've learned recently about Yeshua is that when he was starting his life of teaching in the area of the Sea of Galilee, and people were starting to think of him as another Messiah. He's the Messiah. He's come to save us from the oppressors, the Romans. And there had been messiahs before him that have come and gone, and messiahs after him. But this one made the history books, that's for sure. So they were talking him up as being the Messiah, the Messiah. He's going to save us from the Romans, and we're going to become the nation of God and rule the world. And then their Messiah was crucified as a criminal. It totally threw their story out the window. They were in shock. They didn't, because their Messiah was supposed to be riding in like the King David with a sword and destroying everything and violently overtaking it all with great command and God's power. And he was crucified with a criminal on each side of him as a criminal. Mm-hmm. So the story we get now is possibly tainted because what really happened was different than what we see now. So there's plenty of room for error. And yes, go ahead, Ed.
Okay, so really, if you actually want to look at what should have been the New Testament, you've got to go to the Nag Hammadi library. Has anyone read much of that, like the Book of Enoch and the Gnostic texts?
I've read the Nag Hammadi twice.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, not all of it's even been translated yet. There's still more to come in the future, but there's a lot of weird stuff in there, man. Like their version of the creation epic blew my mind. What was the name of the guy that was so beautiful when Sophia created him, that every single thing in that had ever been created essentially sexually wanted him, and then he psychically impregnated everything in existence all at once. Seriously, there is some crazy stuff in the original teachings of Jesus. Because, what the Romans gave us afterwards it's mostly Mithraism when you really break it down. Like the difference between, the stuff that should have gone into the New Testament and from the Nag Hammadi or the Gnostic stuff, and what we got. The main difference is the Mithra epic, which is where you get the whole kind of adversary versus redeemer thing, because not much of that's really in the Nag Hammadi thing, not to the same way that the Romans put it in. All right, and really, when you look at the Gnostic things, the main thing that is so different is the way that they frame kind of God as the Christians put it. Yeah, like the way that they frame Yahweh in the Gnostic religion is more like a jailer, is more like somebody who keeps us here out of service to self. And we're these beings of light that have got to find our way back to Sophia and the light, and the God that we know, that the whole Catholic Christian ethos is built around, is portrayed as an evil jailer that is keeping us here because of pride. It's really weird. Everybody should go and read these books. It's mind-blowing. And thinking about it as this was what should have been the New Testament, but it obviously got completely edited and chopped to bits, and just bits taken out here and there, and spanned together. Like so much. It's weird, the difference. All right, but I recommend anybody to go and read it, because the crossover between them is amazing. Because the message, that Jesus came to say, like what you said, like that he was supposed to be like a warlord, but instead he ended up giving himself over for a greater purpose, I suppose. Right, and that's all the same. That's all still in there. The actual essential teachings are the same, but all of the story and all of the details are so wildly different. It's mind blowing. Like the whole kind of the way that it frames Lucifer as well, kind of or the serpent. In the Nag Hammadi, their version of the creation epic, essentially Sophia is this creature of the daughter of the light, and she accidentally basically creates reality, and we're all trapped, little sparks of the light that are trapped here in this thing. And she made what Christians would call God to rule over, to take care of this thing, to give it order and to shepherd it all back. But then he forgot that she made him, decided that he ruled all of it and that there was nothing else and it was all for him, and then basically trapped us in human bodies. Like, oh my God, the whole Adam and Eve thing, like Adam was basically God's attempt to make life like Sophia could, and it came out as this broken, pathetic thing that he couldn't make live. So Sophia sent Eve down, and she took pity on it and breathed the light into it. And that's what started humanity. Her giving life to this massless form. And then essentially while she was doing that, then Adam woke up and they formed in love, and they was all like, oh, yay, whatever. But then while she's doing that, angels and demons from the seven heavens were planning to brutally rape Eve. And I swear that the quote is something like, let's cover her in our ejaculate or something stupid so that she can no longer return to the light. These are angels. Yeah, that's how they're framed in the Nag Hammadi library. It's not like what the Romans gave us. It's really weird. So then she runs away, right? Because of the fact that there's all these what are supposed to be angelic things trying to defile her, right? And she hides in a tree. Now, Sophia, her mother, the real light that we all come from, that we should all be coming back from. Can I just say the root of the word philosophy, as in love of Sophia, right? We're all trying to get back. So she knew that Eve wasn't going to be able to work out this weird place. So she sent a messenger to tell Eve everything she'd need to know, right? So Eve is hiding in this tree, Yeah, because all these other things are trying to hurt her. And she's like, right, what can I do? So she leaves a version of herself in the tree and she goes back to the light. Right now, Lucifer, or the serpent, is coming down to deliver the message of all of the knowledge from the light that she needs to survive in this horrible place that God has created. So then the serpent comes down and it's got to deliver this apple that's got all the knowledge in it to Eve. But Eve has gone back to the light and he ends up delivering it to the human copy of Eve that's left. And then she takes it and shares it with Adam. So really, the whole kind of the forbidden fruit in the Bible is the knowledge of what we really are, delivered from the light to subvert what the Christians made God by letting us know what we really are. Once again, then leading on to the teachings that Jesus is trying to teach you, that you are a God inside yourself and you need to follow this way of living in order to crystallize what you are as a human to ascend back towards the light. Anyway, I recommend everybody else reads it. There's so much more weird, fucked up shit in it than that. I mean, one person impregnating the entire universe is one thing, but then angels all trying to rape Eve, still just fucked up. Seriously, I'm amazed you haven't all read it. It's a fucking crazy book.
I think bringing it all kind of back to Law of One, I think what this really exemplifies is why there is such value in seeking your own truths rather than accepting whatever popular dogma or even unpopular dogmas out there. I think there are some universal truths that if we open our hearts, service to self or service to other really doesn't matter, we will eventually stumble upon. But I think when we take the words of men or women that have been written far before our time and have been changed and manipulated for all sorts of terrible things without any sort of exception. Every religion out there has at some point been used for something horrible other than what the original message was. But I think as long as we're willing to clear away the dogma and kind of search for ourselves, I think certain answers always end up coming to the light, regardless of the religion chosen.
100%, dude. And I think that the Law of One is the most amazing thing. Ra even said it earlier. He was like, one of the religious distortions from the Law of One, right? Once you understand what Ra it describes, you can look back at every single one of these ancient texts, every single religion across the world by anybody. You can strip away the dogma, you strip away the nonsense, and they all say the same thing. Every single one of them. And it's the Law of One. You know, you just got to understand the esoteric hidden behind the exoteric of the religions. And they're all the characters are the same, the stories are all the same. The whole idea of the snake rising, the 33 degrees in the Freemasonry, doesn't that come down to the amount of steps on his spine as well that you were saying, Robert, earlier? So like it's like Jacob's ladder, isn't it? How many vertebrae have we got?
I just wanted to say that you're totally right, Ed. I was just read this book. It was called Leadership and Self-Deception: Getting Out of the Box by the Arbinger Institute, and it's geared for business people, how to like do business, and all it is the Law of One repackaged. And instead of saying open your heart, they say get out of the box. And instead of saying, oh, you have a closed heart, they say you're in the box. But anyways, Fred?
Well, I wanted to ask something about going back to the session. I don't know what, I know 8418, they mentioned something about sexual activity that we incur in third density having a permanent impact on our complete selves, that would mean our higher self. Is that what they meant? Does anybody know the answer to, or what I mean? Does that make sense?
Can you read the particular passage you're referring to?
No, it was 84:18.
Can I just say on this subject, like loads of the other channelings say that when you kind of have sex with somebody, essentially kind of both of your energies kind of connect in a way that when you move apart from each other, there's still a link. I like to think of it as like a quantum entanglement. Like when you get two things that they're fired from the same electron thing, they essentially become linked by I think it's gravitons. They're putting it down to. But the point is, so you can separate them apart, and as far as you go, they're still connected. It's like space moves around them. All right, and it's like when you have sex with somebody, you kind of create a link like that. Yeah, and what Ra talks about it is well, essentially it's transfer of energy that moves between this kind of thread that you create between two people when you do those things. So like this whole thing, all he was talking like when he was talking about kind of that sex is actually a way to connect to the higher self. It can be like insanely meditative. When you talk about tantra, where you sort of like, there's so many different things of like, Aleister Crowley wrote whole like books about sex magic. The whole sigil magic thing. The whole thing of like you draw a pretty picture, you put all your intention into it, and then you visualize it in your head in perfect clarity while you masturbate, and at climax you activate the spell. It's like it's huge. But most chaos magicians spend so much money on tissues. It's stupid.
Brett, are you sure that was 8418 that you were talking about? I didn't.
8418. From my understanding, it's basically when you have two people, and one is has all of the things cleared until the heart rate, and the other person is still in orange ray. And so they do not have their heart open. They are just seeking kind of sex for the gratification or the domination or acceptance. And then the so they're saying that the person who has their heart open will have a small increase in their green ray positive polarity by being of service to this person. But they will not gain any energy in the exchange.
Right. Okay. So this whole thing, right? This whole is awesome. When we was talking about the potential difference. So potential difference in electrical circuits is essentially when you've got a membrane in the center and you've got two opposite polarity charges built up on either side. So like how what's it called? Not a transistor. Anyway, so essentially you've got like, because he's described it in other ones where you've got the opposite polarity flow in masculine and feminine energy, right? Yeah.
Capacitor, Ed.
Capacitor. That's it. Yeah, dude. That's it. Seriously, everyone just don't mute. Just talk. So. Yeah, he's got the whole kind of the potential difference, yeah, and that means there's like a membrane in between, yeah, and you've got positive charge on one side, negative charge on the other, yeah, and the positive, the potential difference between the two is essentially the difference across that membrane, yeah. Now, if that membrane is just a vacuum or like a space, like in a capacitor, yeah, then it builds up on one side and then it jumps across to the other. That's like the transfer that they're talking about when it's a type of energy transfer. Yeah. So when you've got those the two membranes, now if you're both in green ray, yeah, then essentially the positive and negative will interact with each other evenly across the two. The potential difference gradient, right? Whereas if somebody's in orange ray or if they're in yellow ray, if they're doing it for like domination or they're doing it like they just want to brutally do whatever, yeah, then their energy is going to be a lot more kind of in one way than the other. So the potential difference of energy across the two make boom boom, yeah. The potential difference between the two is going to be far more of a gradient from one side to the other. Yeah, it's just a brilliant way of thinking about it. You know, like if somebody's all about unconditional love and just open and just giving, you know, and it being about love and it being a beautiful experience, like Tantra, where, you know, it's not about just making that one instant last. Let's not get into stuff. Anyway, the point is that what Ra's talking about is, you know, that if you can both get it to time perfectly, so it's happening when you're both in the middle of that at the same point, then with green ray open, then that energy transfer is about as good as it like can be, I suppose. Yeah. Whereas, you know, if people are at different energy levels, if people are at orange ray and it's just literally out like fucking, or if they're at yellow ray and it's all about me and, like, you know, as long as I get gratified, you know, but then if it's green ray, it's I you know, you don't mind if you're gratified as long as they're gratified, and, you know, it's a pure rather than a me thing, service to other act rather than a service to self act. Then once again, the potential difference across that two membrane. So he was also talking about kind of voltage, kind of being kind of the. Anyone here do anyone here electrician? Any kind of real can decipher the current voltage thing he was talking about across the chakras? No?
I don't think any real
no,
technical
it's-
knowledge was necessary for that. I think he was just saying that, you know, when you have a blockage in one of the lower energy centers, with the voltage being determined by the crystallization of the green ray, because that's where it steps up, right?
Yeah.
So you have an entry of energy through your feet that will first pass through the red, then the orange, and the yellow. The voltage there is somewhat constant, but once it gets to the green ray, that's where it can be amplified. And if you've amplified it, there becomes an excess of energy between the two that can be shared and, you know, dedicated to the infinite creator, or, you know, whatever, enjoy between the two.
Used to manifest magic, or, you know, lots of other supposed uses that sexual energy can have. But, you know, yeah. There's loads of cool stuff in here about that. Yeah, like the whole thing about when you talk about like pre-veil, you know, sex was much more basically about like a metaphysical transfer rather than anything physical, because it was a time-space interaction rather than a space-time interaction. So it's, what would that mean? Right, if you're not in space time,
that's that connection you spoke of earlier, though, too, where you're after the intercourse and people are still somewhat connected. That's.
Do you think that even for us is a time-space connection than a space-time connection?
So that's Ra was saying, that your physical body has a lot of influences from time, space, more than we realize or give it credit for.
He even said that the body is not where essentially those sensations or those things lie. It's not in there.
Right. Yeah.
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 But that would perfectly match up with the whole orchestrated reality, you know, quantum neuroscience thing, where essentially the thing that understands consciousness and feels pleasure, I suppose, and these other things, isn't the physical body. It's the manifestation of all of these vibrations of energy caused by the body. That is really where we are. Which is, it's like he can't break the law of confusion and tell us this stuff. What he says makes more and more sense. It's bonkers. Anyway.
Fred, were you trying to get something else in, man?
I just, well, you kind of, Ed kind of answered it, but I also had, so does this mean with the, later on, it wasn't 18, it was in the 20s. I didn't write down the number of the questions, but they were talking about the the maximum energy transfer that can be done during a sexual energy transfer is during when there's a simultaneous orgasm.
Yeah,
Now
that's it. When you
what-
both get there at the same point, that's the max. That's the climax, as it were.
Well, but my question is, if your energy centers both aren't open, what happens then in that instance?
Well, then it comes down to the transfer between the two.
So the one with the higher
Right.
open
So,
energy.
so if both the heart, then you become the jewel. Or if you're like just lower energy centers, then it just comes down to a transfer between them. Yeah, like you said, is it it baffles the flow? I think you said. If the energy levels aren't the same, then it all gets convoluted, and one person absorbs the energy that the other person emits, or emits energy for the other person to absorb, I suppose. I just say he did turn up over and over again after just thinking about him.
Mm-hmm.
Bloody cat. Lucifer's always got an orange ray stiffy. Thought that was quite good to know.
What was that? I didn't hear that.
The Lucifer has always got an orange ray stiffy.
I read that, yeah.
Yeah, we're rapidly coming up on 9 o'clock. Did anybody
Mhm.
have anything special to say to kind of close us out before? Oh, Desiree, you're back.
Well, I've been back and forth here.
I didn't even
Look,
realize.
it's okay because you're awesome. Who pays attention to me, anyways?
Can I just say I apologize if I've just chatted too much. Sometimes I really annoy myself, but I love you guys.
Do you know how much we learn from you, or how boring it would be if you didn't chat? We'd probably most of the time would be like staring at each other, looking like a bunch of weirdos.
Can I just
learn
say
a lot
that
from you.
teach, learn, right? Teach, learn. I love you guys.
Oh, good. So you're learning from us patience with yourself while you teach us all this wonderful, amazing things of the world. You're right. Yeah. Teach, learn.
I don't know. I'm just glad I got somebody I could like say all this stuff to, because like I just sit here filling my brain with all this shit all the time, and then
gotta let it out.
I don't have anyone to talk to but my cat. He's like the most fucking enlightened cat in the fucking world, I swear. So yeah,
I know exactly how
you
you feel, Ed. I listen to podcasts, I can listen to audiobooks, I can read all the time, but I can't fucking talk to anybody because nobody wants to hear
Dude,
anything
message
I
me,
have to
literally.
say.
You're like, I would talk to you all day. Just fucking
Sure.
message me, man. And that goes for any of you. I would literally talk about this shit all day with any of you. And just please, just give me a reason to live.
You're
Oh,
sick.
thank God he's laughing. I didn't know if that was a serious cry for help for a second there.
We're all like, so if nobody has anything else, I think all right. I mixed it up last time. So are we closing out with Susanna first, or Robert and then Susanna? I want to do it the right way this time.
I think Robert first and Susanna, right? Susanna's closing the group energy, right? So.
Right.
Well, I was fucking shit up. Thank you, Mitch.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
My
here for
right-hand
you,
man
buddy.
right there.
Let Susanna close out the entire thing.
Okay.
And I'm just going to say something short and sweet. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.
Placing back your hands at the heart center. Now we're going to go the opposite way for closing our personal sacred soul space, joining back at the top, above the head, and bring it down to the heart. And now we will close the group. Sacred soul space again, opposite side, coming up, and we will leave this meeting empowered forward in the love and light. Love you all.
Live long and prosper.
And so we leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai.
Rejoicing.
Love all you guys.
Love you too, man.
Love all of you.
Love you all too.